There are 5 types of currency in Icarus. REN, which you get for finishing missions and selling exotics, which you also get for completing missions, but there's a few other ways to get them, which I'll explain in a second, legendary biomass, which you get for defeating bosses, red exotics, which are similar to exotics but are exclusive to the DLC map Prometheus, and then also uranium rods, which are exclusive to the Dangerous Horizons DLC. First, I'll tell you about all the ways to earn them, all the things you have to be aware of, and the best farming method in my opinion. Then, I will go through the Orbital workshop and let you know what sort of things are worth getting, so you know if you even need to bother with getting the exotics. We know that REN is awarded for missions, but it can also be received as payment from traders in exchange for crops, fish, and vestiges. But traders have to be unlocked through missions on each world first. That out of the way, let's talk about purple exotics. There are 7 ways of getting exotics in this game that I've discovered, and a million ways to spend them. The easiest way to get exotics is to find these nodes in caves and in cracks of the Arctic biome. Some caves have them, some caves don't, but those that do have a 10% chance every 3 in-game hours to respawn them at the same spot. This method does not require any special tech, only pickaxe. Another way to gather exotics in the world is to find these Enzyme Geysers. You'll see them from afar when they shoot out water, but to use them you will have to research vapor condensers from the Tech Tree Tier 4. When you get your hands on one, you'll have to place it on a geyser and activate it. Then, it will take 3 stages to complete, during which you'll be attacked by wildlife. It's recommended that you build some sort of defense as they can quickly overwhelm you with numbers, and the difficulty will scale based on the number of players and the amount of times you've completed the 3 stages. Here's how much you'll get from completing these so-called horde events. You can complete them 3 times in the span of 3 hours. After each, you'll get progressively higher rewards. After the third, exotics will be exhausted, and you'll only get condensed enzymes if you attempt another run. If playing on open world, you can try again after time on prospect hits a 3-hour mark, so 3, 6, 9 hours, etc. But in missions, they don't regenerate. It's the same with caves. My personal opinion is that it's the worst way of getting exotics because of how slow and expensive it is. Another, similar but better way of getting exotics is these exotics deposits. They give up to 400 exotics each, so it sounds like a good source, but the problem is that they are hard to find. There are only 3 per map, and once you exhaust at least one, a meteorite shower happens at the 3-hour playtime mark, and exhausted deposits get shuffled. However, in my experience, all 3 spawn very close to one another, and also when they respawn, they very often respawn in the same place they were before, and others' experience seems to corroborate that. So, how do you find them? Well, you have to equip one of these 3 scanners: biofuel radar, electric radar, or IC001 radar from the workshop. Your choice is determined by your situation. Either run around with a full biofuel can, a solar panel, and an electricity tool, or nothing in the case of the workshop radar. The diameter of the scan radius is exactly 1 tile, so consider placing it exactly in the middle of a square for ease of interpretation, and because you can't perform scans in such a way that they overlap. When being used, all of them will attract wildlife, so be prepared. Once scanning is finished, you will see these arcs on the map. They can be toggled on and off here. So the arcs themselves point in the direction of exotic deposits. They don't point towards nodes in the caves or geysers or anything else. The wider the arc, the farther the deposit. The narrower the arc, the closer the deposit. The arcs are not centered on deposits, meaning they don't have to be here and can instead be anywhere here. You want to keep scanning until you narrow the arc so much you can find the deposit on the ground yourself, in this case it would be somewhere here, or when you see the icon of a gem in the scanned results, which is the exact location of the deposit, and you should stop looking. When searching for a deposit with your eyes, it's best to go searching at night as the deposits glow bright purple. Don't rely on sound because even though there's an audio cue, it very often bugs out and doesn't play. If you still can't find it, try to look up an interactive map online. It will show you all the possible locations of deposits and you'll be able to find yours. When you find a deposit, plop down a beacon so you don't lose it. Then, you can put down up to 2 exotics extractors, but remember that they will need power to operate. You can't carry 2 exotic extractors in your backpack though, since they take up the heavy slot. You will need to use your mount slot to bring a second one, buy an extractor from the workshop and request it through Orbital Exchange interface, Or use the trick with the Sinotai beacon that allows you to transport lots of heavy items quickly and painlessly that I will share with you in the workshop chapter of this video. So, from this deposit, I got 331 exotics total, which, with 2 extractors, took me 70 minutes. Thankfully, it's exactly like the deep mining drills, the extractors don't attract animals so you don't have to protect them and can freely leave them alone. Once the deposit is exhausted, it will stop glowing in purple. At that point, you collect your extractors and power source and move on to the next. But like I said, if you exhaust just one deposit, then a meteor shower will happen at 3-hour playtime mark and erase all the scans from the map. This means that if you've scanned a lot and have already found another deposit but haven't placed a beacon there, you're running against the clock to do it. If a meteor shower happens before you get to it, the deposit won't disappear, but you'll need another scan to help you find it. Now, for the fourth way of getting exotics, let's talk about missions. Some of them pay you exotics for completing them, and you can repeat them an endless amount of times. The problem is that they don't pay that much for the effort required. To maximize profits when doing them, it's best to seek out exotic nodes and exotic deposits. There's plenty of lists online for the missions that have the best yields. Do note that the difficulty that you pick changes just the reward for the mission, not the amount of mineable exotics on the prospect itself. You can also do operations from within an open world, but then you can't repeat the missions in that world again. Personally, doing missions is not my preferred method. A better method of getting exotics is to beat the bosses. Sandworms and alpha wolves on Olympus, and scorpions if you're playing Styx. For each kill, you get 35 to 50 exotics. Do note that it takes an hour for them to respawn though. There are 6 bosses on Olympus and 9 on Styx, so plenty to farm. To help you find them and also know when they've respawned, you can use World Boss module or learn the Big Game Hunter skill. The Norix boss tracker does not in fact track their locations, just the number of living bosses, so don't waste your time on it. Also, you can combine this method with missions. Pick a mission that spawns you close to a boss like Headstone or Kill List, this way you won't have to wait an hour for them to respawn. Kill the boss, send the exotics to orbit, rinse and repeat. You don't have to finish the mission, but you do have to have some orbital items for it to be efficient. And since the difficulty doesn't change how much loot your enemies drop, you might as well set it to easy. The sixth method of farming exotics is very similar to the previous one, but needs Great Hunts DLC and starting the Quarrite campaign. Once you do the first mission, Quarrites will start spawning in the world. When you close up their burrows, you can get obsidian and a small amount of exotics, but it's too little to write home about. But once you complete the research mission, exotic Quarrites will start spawning in the world. Closing one of those burrows gives you 10 to 20 exotics, and defeating each of them nets you 25 exotics and 5 condensed enzymes, but you do have to clean their exotic shells in either biofuel cleaner or the organic residue cleaner. And now finally, the last and the best method of getting exotics. Mining exotic nodes with either this miasmic pickaxe or this pickaxe from the workshop. This node gave me 14 exotics and an equivalent amount of Noxious Crust, each of which I can refine in this organic residue cleanser into 5 exotics. So that's 84 exotics from just one node. Just throw a beacon near the cave and come back in 3 hours and there will be a new exotics node at the same spot. Not bad, right? The problem with these pickaxes is that they need materials that can only be found on Prometheus, the DLC map. The miasmic pickaxe needs crystallized miasma, which you get from killing some animals on Prometheus, and the night pickaxe needs red exotics to unlock, but at least it can be used on other maps too. To get red exotics then, you have to be on Prometheus or Elysium. Way number 1 of obtaining them is collecting strange plants. These will give you 3 to 5 volatile exotics and 2 to 3 seeds that you can then plant and grow more exotics, but when planted they won't produce any seeds, so you'll eventually run out of them too. They're so hard to find, I only ever found a few, so I didn't focus on them, and instead put my efforts into these trees. They're the local exotic deposits, but they have volatile exotics in them, which need refining before use. All you need to collect them is an exotic harvester, some electricity generator, and a lot of time. They don't attract animals, so feel free to leave, but do remember to come back in 25 minutes because it won't extract any more if it's full. It extracts 2 per minute, then organic residue cleaner processes them at the rate of 1 per minute and gives you 2 stabilized exotics to send to the orbit. So to get 100 red exotics you'll need 50 minutes plus all the movement. The third way to get red exotics is to use a charged lithium sickle on plants on the Elysium map to get plant DNA that allows you to make your own strange plants in Chemistry Bench. And that's it on exotics. Let me know in the comments if you know any other methods. Now, legendary biomass. This thing can only be obtained through killing bosses. For each boss, you get 10 in my experience, plus scales, tendons, teeth, fur, venom sacs and other boss parts that you can process into more biomass in a residue cleaner. The wiki says that you can't build it on Olympus, but you can, if you have started the Great Hunts campaign. Quarrite burrows provide you with obsidian that is needed to build the cleaner. You can use legendary biomass on some inhalers in the workshop and to upgrade weapons that you purchase from the biolab. In the biolab, there are several weapons you can buy. The top 3 require completing each separate mission from the Great Hunts DLC on each of the maps, but these bottom ones don't. However, without the DLC, you can't get a legendary license, so you'll have to earn and convert 15,000 REN to get one. If you do have the DLC, you get licenses for completing some campaign missions. Now, are these worth it? Well, it's down to preference. I think the revolver is good for weaker enemies if you can aim. Kinetic rifle is slightly better than assault rifle and helped me a lot in fights against bosses. Javelin launcher I found kinda useless, and it also requires you to craft pretty expensive javelins in the foundry. The maul is too slow and short for my taste, while the flamethrower is unexpectedly great, especially with the firebombs upgrade, just don't use it near your base. And remember that once you have an upgrade on one of those, you cannot remove it. The Quarrite campaign bugged out on me. I completed it, but it didn't register for me, so I could not get access to the armature, so I got demotivated and didn't bother to complete any of the other campaigns yet, so I can't tell you if they're any good. Another use case for the biomass is buying some equipment from the recently introduced trader NPCs. And finally, the last currently available currency, Uranium, exclusive to Elysium. To get it, you'll need to craft and use a uranium locator. Then, bring to the site some radiation-resistant armor or a stack of 3 radiation modules. Get rid of all the mutants surrounding it, put down an uranium harvester, and fight off all the curious creatures while your harvester is doing the deed. Stay farther away and use ranged weapons so you don't get as much radiation. You can get about 200 to 300 uranium this way. Then, carry the harvested uranium home, but keep in mind that you'll get radiation exposure as you transport it. For now, there's no way to move it safely. Survive. Next, wherever you put that uranium will suffer contamination, so build a centrifuge further away from your main base. This will allow you to craft 1 rod, 10 ingots, and 1 radioactive waste per each raw uranium. You might discover that nothing is being produced even though the centrifuge has the uranium, the water, and the electricity. Just remove uranium and put it back in. At the moment there's not much to use the rods on, but I'm sure the devs are cooking, and there will be some new items in the workshop eventually. Speaking about workshop, are any of these things even worth it? Too long didn't watch summaries that most items that you can craft on Icarus are better than those you can buy in the workshop. But there are still plenty of items you can't get anywhere else, like Enviro suits, so let's discuss. I can't tell you which Enviro suit suits you best, as it depends on situation, but I can tell you what each parameter does. Oxygen, water and food slots are how you stop manually caring for your character's needs. Just put a filled canteen, oxygen tank and a stack of foods into the corresponding slots and you don't have to worry about them for hours. Physical resistance is your character's defense stat. Suit module slots let you put these modules from the workshop to improve your life, while heat and cold resistances increase the comfortable range your prospector can be in. For example, clear sky during daytime in the Arctic requires 58% cold resistance to not have the cold debuff. This is also impacted by other buffs that raise or lower body temperature, like chilled from drinking from a canteen. Exposure resistance then slows down the rate at which exposure meter fills up, allowing you to spend longer time outdoors during storms. Armors have the similar buffs, but they also give additional perks if you complete a set. My personal pick is this one just to make my mounts run faster, but it's important to note that I don't use this armor in my main open world map, because the armor that you craft in the world is better than this and can also be improved on the alteration bench, while neither of these can. The only benefit of using these armors and other workshop items for me is to give me a head start on new missions or worlds before I can craft more advanced items. When it comes to backpacks, as a solo player I prefer Gatherer's backpack, which I got on Olympus for free from completing the spelunking mission. Once I have all my ores figured out, my backpack of choice is the Explorer backpack. To me, it's the best thing ever because I hate wasting time, and when I equipped it for the first time I immediately felt like Usain Bolt. I recommend getting it as soon as you can just to stop wasting as much time in this game on running. Modules are also a personal choice. These are the ones that go into those slots that envirosuits enable. I like the dampener module and pheromone module for increased speed, but it's situational and in a perfect world you would switch between modules depending on what problem you're facing. I don't want to worry about that, so I just carry movement speed modules everywhere. By the way, this module is a repeat of a skill you can learn in the skill tree. It's a great perk that I recommend, but it's up to you to decide if you want to spend a module slot on it or a skill point. Animal highlighting looks like this, and World Boss module is the module I talked about in the exotics chapter. And by the way, modules can stack, but each subsequent module only gives 50% of the perk. Here's what 3 mass dampener modules can do. That's 17.5% speed boost. Now to gadgets. The difference between this deep mining ore scanner and the one you can craft on the planet is that this one allows you to set the specific type of ore that you're looking for. Very useful. The fish scanner allows you to see what types of fish are available in the water body, useful only for the fishers in this game and has no craftable alternatives. The beast scanner does not show you anything useful about creatures you're scanning. It won't show you their stats or their bloodline. The only use for the scanner is to mark an animal for you to have an easier time tracking it and to give you a slight boost to damaging it. It also grants you 3 bestiary points for scanning juveniles and 6 for scanning adults. Bestiary points are species specific and unlock perks for your character when you reach 40 and 100% completion. For a full list of perks, check the link in the pinned comment. These are no better than the alternatives you can craft on the planet, but they're not meant to be. The use for these items comes from the fact that they can be transferred from prospect to prospect and used at the start of each mission immediately. This helps you avoid the need to go through the same crafting paths again and again just to craft the essentials. The only thing to remember is that you have to fill them if they're empty before sending to orbit so that you can make use of them later. Not worth crafting if you're planning to only play open world all the time. These two are worth it if you have some extra red exotics. Now this thing is great to have access to. You probably think that the dropship pod is only useful to hide from storms and leave the prospect on, but that's not all. You already know you can't take any items with you that you didn't get from the workshop, but for some reason the game allows you to still place those things into the pod's inventory. And with the help of the dropship beacon, you can request the pod to join you anywhere on the map with all the stuff that you had put into it. Use it for transporting base pieces, loot, mined ore, and whatever else you need. The only prerequisite is having 250 exotics to research it, and 25 REN for each time you want to summon the pod. There's also a planet-side alternative you can craft here. Another benefit of using a dropship pod is that it's the only way in multiplayer at this moment to have personal storage that others don't have access to. Unfortunately, you can't hide your mansion in it. This free-for-all is one of the reasons people do not play Icarus open world multiplayer with random people. Another reason is that you can't rely on some random server to stay running forever and be available for you the next time you play it. But playing with friends is the same issue, the host always has to have their computer running. To overcome this problem and make it easy for you and your friends, consider renting a server from G-Portal, like so many other Icarus players have. G-Portal makes it quick and easy to set up your own server, and you won't experience the lags and stutters that plague every multiplayer game because of the fact that host CPU has to support both the game client and the server. Use the link in the description to lock in a 10% discount on a server that's easy to use, has DDoS protection and top-of-the-line support. And if you get tired of Icarus, just cancel the Icarus server and you'll have your 10% discount again, to use on any of the 100 games available on G-Portal. Now this repair kit bundle gives you 5 repair kits for repairing legendary weapons and workshop tools. Yes, you have to purchase a separate thing to be able to repair everything that I will be talking about next, and even more, you also need a special repair bench. So factor that into the consideration as you ponder if you should get all these axes, pickaxes, knives and other tools. They're mostly worse than craftable alternatives, but they do have their edge case uses. For example, I'd consider this axe for reduction of wood weight, but other than that, every workshop axe is worse than its planet alternative in terms of damage, falling damage, and yield, unless you want to use it as a weapon. Same with knives, unless you're interested in using them as weapons, the titanium knife is better than all the workshop ones. Pickaxes have a bit more interesting bonuses though. This Shengong Kuang pickaxe, for example, is relatively inexpensive and lets you mine high-tier ores as soon as you land on a prospect. On the planet, you'd have to craft a steel pickaxe just to do that, which is a long process. This Inaris pickaxe provides a 50% reduction of over-encumbrance penalty, which is useful to just load yourself to the brim with stuff, switch to this pickaxe, and keep on running freely. If you don't mind exploiting the game a little, there's a neat trick that can help you carry thousands of ores in your inventory without suffering over-encumbered debuff. Check my video for this and other tricks here. Then there's the Claret pickaxe, which automatically smelts some of the ores that you mine with it, and the Night pickaxe that I've already talked about that gives you Noxious Crust that you then process into exotics. Now, this will surprise you, but all the workshop hammers are better than the tier 4 hammer, even this sucker. The only thing that workshop hammers lose out on is the attachment slot. But even with the best attachment, your titanium hammer could look like this. Surprisingly, spears aren't bad either. This Larkwell Martinez is slightly stronger than the composite spear, though you can't add attachments to it. I can't comment on bows and crossbows as I haven't used them enough to have anything to say. When it comes to firearms, my personal feeling is that they're also underwhelming, but I guess that's the whole concept of the game. You earn some money so you can afford some basic weapons at the start of a new prospect, and then you outgrow them and get yourself something better. Or at the very least can then craft your own ammo. This one is not necessary to use these guns. This category is only for getting a head start in new missions. Not mandatory, but remove the need to craft them in the world, improving the experience and increasing chances of survival. One thing to note about them is that if you request a canister to power your cooker or heater and don't finish it before finishing the mission, you can't take the canister back to orbit. On the farming side, you can order seeds here that are otherwise unavailable in the world. The aeroponic plot is also the best crop plot in the game, and the excavator is an amazing shovel, better than anything you can craft. Like other shovels, it will create a dirt mound that you can plant crops in, but these will never wither and will withstand every type of storm. And while yes, you will still only be able to harvest the crops once, the use of this shovel is not to farm but to terraform and beautify your surroundings. You can buy saddles in the workshop for your animals, which you can, by the way, transfer from one world to another. Having a saddle from the workshop allows you to immediately equip a mount with a saddle, since you cannot send planet-side crafted saddles to the orbit. The consumables are all of course situational. I never bought any. The radar in the extraction tab is for finding exotic deposits and doesn't need any power. The extractor has to be powered by this non-rechargeable battery. The only case for ordering resources would be to order something that you can't find on the map you're playing, clay or scoria on Olympus for example. Obsidian, as I said, can be found through the Quarrites, but there's not that much. The Norex tab is similar to the consumables. One notable mention is Noxious Mining Inhaler, which is similar to the Night Pickaxe, but I don't know why anyone would want it if they can just craft the pickaxe for a more permanent effect. And about all the creatures I have already talked in my complete animal taming and breeding guide, check it out here. So, what do you think? Are you gonna grind for any of these workshop and biolab items? Drop your thoughts below. Otherwise, check out my other videos and don't forget to subscribe.